When we look at the disclosure of our leases for our lessee, in the statement of financial position, on the face of the statement of financial position, we will have recognized our right of use of our asset in our non-current assets section, and our lease liability will be split between the non-current liabilities as well as the current liabilities. Now, in the current liabilities, remember, we need to include the portion that will be payable in the next 12 months. And the portion that will be payable for the period after this should be included in our non-current liabilities. Now, we will look at this in our lecture examples as well. Now, the notes to the financials, we need to include our right of use of our asset. Remember, this shall be disclosed and presented in our non-current assets. Very similar to your PPE note. You will have to include the carrying amount at the start of the period, the beginning of the year, any depreciation, additions, adjustments for the lease being reassessed or lease modifications, and maturity analysis of lease payments to be paid at the reporting date. Future lease payments undiscounted, guys, important. Therefore, this is the payment as is per year for 20.17, 18, 19, 20, and your remaining years. This will total your future lease payments and total lease finance costs, lease liability, and disclose the long-term and short-term portion. Again, we will look at this in our lecture examples as well. Then, if there is any potential future lease payments relating to periods following the exercise date or termination options, should be summarized. Income and expenses related to leases. Now remember, when they indicate to you in your requirement section that you need to disclose your notes relating to your profit and loss, you need to know that you need to include your income from any subleasing, gain from any sale and leasebacks, expenses if there's any variable lease payments, short-term lease expenses, or low-value lease expenses when the recognition exemption is applied. Then your total cash outflows, remember this will be part of our IS7 lecture, and details relating to your finance costs. Remember your finance costs on your lease liabilities, financial liabilities, other finance costs, borrowing costs capitalized. Now this is the template, guys, and please study your template. If you study the template and the requirement indicates that you need to disclose the notes, immediately write down your template. This is your template for the disclosure of a finance lease in the lessor's records. Now, when we look at a finance lease, you need to know on the face of your statement of financial position, in your non-current assets, you will have a line item net investment in the finance lease, and included in your current assets, a line item net investment. Now, the section or the amount presented in your current assets shall be the capital portion that will be payable within the next 12 months of your lease, and the amount presented in your non-current assets section shall be the capital amount that shall be payable for the period exceeding 12 months. Now remember that we are going to work through an example. Now, some of the qualitative IFRS 16 disclosures in the records of the lessor will be illustrated below. Now, in the note, you need to include your finance income from the finance leases, and in the profit before tax, your finance lease income. Now guys, exactly the same. You will have to include a finance income note as well as a profit before tax note. Then a reconciliation of the net investment. This will include an opening balance and the movement for the year, meaning any new leases entered into, repayments of capital portion, and if there's any lease modifications, and this shall result in a closing balance. Maturity analysis of a finance lease. You need to include the gross investment in the lease, the undiscounted amount, your unearned finance income, and your net investment in the lease. Now guys, on your right hand side, you will identify that there is another analysis, and your unguaranteed residual values shall be disclosed. Now, when we look at the disclosure of our operating lease, remember our operating lease shall be straight lined. Therefore, again guys, in your profit before tax note, you need to include all of the details relating to the operating lease income, the straight line lease income on investment properties and any other assets. Income from variable lease payments that do not depend on an index rate, machinery or other underlying assets. Now guys, you will have to read the information provided. They will indicate to you that there's a variable lease payment relating to machinery or any other underlying assets. Then the operating lease agreement details. The undisclosed lease payments expected to be received under the operating lease agreement at the reporting date, year 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Therefore guys, this is your template that you need to study. If the requirement indicates that you need to prepare the notes relating to your finance lease in your lessor's records, immediately you need to draft your template. Or if you need to disclose the notes relating to your operating lease, immediately draft your template.